Early this morning, I had an email from a friend of mine I haven't seen in a long, long time. And he goes way, way back in radio. He was one of these big time rock jocks in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania back in the 1960s, and then moved into radio management. Now he actually has a company. They build and supply veterinary supplies. Quite a career change, but he sent me a short story today about Rocky Marciano and what a great fighter Marciano was. He retired undefeated, and it talks a little bit about who might be the greatest fighter of all time. Now, we tend to focus on the heavyweights, they get all the attention. I bring this up because uh, there's a memorial service today. You will not call, I guess it's not called a funeral, it's a private memorial service. How is it that Muhammad Ali, now, the Nation of Islam technically isn't really considered, he joined that initially, right back in the 1960s. That's not actually Islamic. I heard a woman on a radio show some years ago saying it's a hybrid between Christianity, Islam, and black nationalism, which was what it was with Elijah Muhammad, the founder of it. And then Ali was involved, but then he walked away from the Nation of Islam years later, and he became a Sunni Muslim, which means that half the Muslims in the world must hate him because, well, the Sunnis don't like the Shiites, and the Shiites don't like the Sunnis. And then yesterday there was a pilgrimage by tens of thousands of Muslims, or at least thousands of them, to Louisville, Kentucky, where they had their own memorial service in his honor. But he is, I guess people get a week before they're criticized after they die, technically, in this country. Isn't that how that works? At least in media. But the fawning over Ali, it just, today, the people who will be speaking at that funeral or memorial service, Bill Clinton will eulogize him. I'm sorry, but this is a campaign event. It's that's in all of this talk. I thoroughly believe that Ali may have felt a lot of oppression and growing up in Louisville, which was a segregated city, and he had some beefs with the way things were in the 1960s. But a lot of his actions were just plain un-American. Now he became very much later in his life he very much became a flag waving patriot, but he wasn't always that way, and the way he has been, and he was just downright mean. Did you know that Joe Frazier helped Ali get his boxing license back? And then among those first fights, they had a fight against each other. And Ali just mocked Frazier constantly, calling him an Uncle Tom, and Frazier never forgave him. Frazier, actually, who was a Republican, which is why when he died, there was very. Do you know that Frazier fought for years out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania? They have a big statue there to an imaginary boxer, Rocky Balboa, but there is no statue for Joe Frazier. A few years ago, one of the Philadelphia newspapers did a story about that, trying to get to the bottom of that. Here's a former champion who was real and fought in three of the greatest fights of all time, all three with Muhammad Ali, and probably won the third one, but for some unknown reason, Ali ended up getting the vote from the judges. It just, Frazier was always getting the short end of the stick. But there's no statue to Frazier because one of his friends was interviewed by the Philadelphia Inquirer and said, well, everyone knows Joe was a conservative Republican, that's why. And in Philadelphia, that's a bad thing to be. You may remember in Philadelphia in the 2012 presidential election, there were like no votes in the city for Mitt Romney. Even something's wrong there. Let me put it this way. Even if somebody walks into a voting booth now and then and they punch the wrong button by mistake. I mean, it was so ridiculously lopsided. It was like looking at those old figures for the elections out of the old Soviet Union. Leonid Brezhnev was reelected today by 99.9% of the vote. And the other guy who voted no won't get his bread this week. So the next time around, he'll know which way to vote because Leonid is buttering his bread for him. It is 8:37. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. I do want to remind you that if you're listening to this show, I thank you very much for your time this morning, but also, if you're having difficulty hearing it, we have some recommendations. Dr. Christine Pickup, Doctor of Audiology in Rupert at Mount Harrison Audiology, is the only locally owned independent hearing healthcare practitioner in southern Idaho. And with advances in healthcare, people are living longer, healthier lives, but cognitive decline continues to be a major concern. People with hearing loss have a much greater risk of developing cognitive decline, which can lead to dementia. The greater the loss, the greater the risk. Keeping your hearing healthy is an important part of overall wellness. Knowing your hearing status and doing something about it can lead to a better, healthier life as you age. Now is the time to schedule a hearing evaluation, and you can call Mount Harrison Audiology for an appointment. The telephone number 208-312-0957. We've got more coming up. Speaking of Islam, there is a writer from Crisis Magazine today who says that you're mocked every time, and we see it here in Idaho too as well. And like Randy Staples told me one time, he said, "Oh, come on. That you guys who are worried about Sharia law," he said, "it's not like the Muslims are out mustering in the sagebrush preparing an attack." But there's a writer who used to be a professor at Boston University, or Boston College rather, which is a Roman Catholic college technically in Boston, Massachusetts, by the name of William Kilpatrick, who has a column today where he says, look, even though we're talking about a small number of people, we better beware, and I'll tell you why. Because small numbers of people are already moving the board, the pieces on the board in this country. In certain aspects, they're changing the way we live because of being a very vocal minority. And I'd like to share some of that with you coming up in a few minutes here on the program today. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. Oh, and by the way, you can give me a telephone call after the break if you like. The number is 736-0300. My email is bill.colley@townsquaremedia.com. Telephone number again, 736-0300. We have a short break. We'll see you on the other side. Do you recall a couple of years ago when there were certain members, there was just a handful of members of the Idaho State Legislature who were warning that we needed to have a provision that this state would not ever be subject to Sharia law. And of course, immediately the leftists at the newspapers who cover for all of these leftist causes sprang into action and said, "Oh, look at those stupid, dopey, wild-eyed, conservative Tea Party Republicans again. Come now. We'll never have Sharia law here. There's only a few hundred Muslims in the state. These people always. Why don't they talk about something worthwhile?" And then even many of their fellow Republicans, of course, who were always looking to curry favor with good folks in the mainstream media, said, yeah, we're not like those dopes over there. And, if you contribute to our political action committee, we'll help get rid of them. So that was the result of all of that. They were ostracized, pushed out of the way. It's 8:45. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 68 right now. You may not know the name William Kilpatrick. I'm a longtime reader of William Kilpatrick. He writes for Crisis, which is a Roman Catholic magazine for conservative Catholics, as well as for The Wanderer, which is also for conservative Roman Catholics. Oddly enough, when I lived back east in all of the blue states, New York, Vermont, and Delaware, we had lots of conservative Catholics. I came to Red State, Idaho, and I find that at least among the clergy, there's this continuing effort to gay up the church. But there still are some conservative Catholics I meet on the street in various places. This guy says this today in his column. If Islamicization seems improbable, consider that only a few years ago, the dismantling of sex-segregated bathrooms and locker rooms seemed equally unlikely. Sure, the sexual revolutionaries had broken many barriers, but they wouldn't force themselves into the women's changing room at your local public pool, now would they? We know now that they would and could, and not because the LGBT community has any kind of numerical advantage given their numbers. The sexual radicals should have very little clout. Nevertheless, they tend to get what they want, whether it's same-sex marriage, gender-blind bathrooms, or the prosecution of Christian bakers, florists, and photographers. Of course, they wouldn't be so successful without the backing, he writes, of big government, big business, and big media entertainment, not to mention big sports and big education. Let's call them the Big Five. It's become increasingly difficult to disentangle the Big Five from online or one another because increasingly they act in unison. Big education can be relied on to go along with whatever big government wants for fear of losing federal money. But it's generally not a problem for them because having attended the same schools and imbibed the same ideology, educational administrators and government officials tend to think alike. So do the textbook publishers. They are part of big business, part big education, and part big media. Big sports are so tangled up with other interests that they can usually be relied on to do the politically correct thing, whatever that may happen to be at the moment. So when you try to resist the gender agenda, you're in a David and Goliath situation, and the Big Five has requisitioned all available slings and stones. So you have what? 0.2%, that is a fraction of the population of this country, that doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl. And yet, they have managed to get someone in government, in fact, the President of the United States, to say, well, if they think they're a girly man, then they can use whatever bathroom they like today. And you've got the sports league saying, well, if you don't go along with this, we're going to take the All-Star game away from your state. Well, that means you can watch it on TV and use your own toilet, so no one will come in while you're going to the pee-pee and push you out of the way and say, hey, I need to use that right now. Gangway. But I'm telling you, if you've got such a small minority that has been able to work this to the point where they have completely changed the culture and now they're doing a victory lap, then you've got more people in America right now who are Muslims than who are transgender. So if Muslims start demanding, at least in their own neighborhoods, and eventually down the road that they want other courts to respect Sharia law, well, they'll get out the same playbook, won't they? And we've seen it done over and over and over again. It's 8:48. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Telephone number if you'd like to reach our program today, 736-0300. 736-0300. Mr. Kilpatrick, or Dr. Kilpatrick, goes on to write, culture wars are not easy to detect, especially in their early stages. It took a long time for Christians in America to understand that a culture war was being waged against them by leftists and sexual revolutionaries. And he goes on to say many still don't get it. They don't understand the tyrannical nature of the enemy or the type of total warfare that he is waging. And he says, likewise, those who think that political Islam will be appeased by Islam-friendly school curriculums or by open immigration policies or by participation in high office will someday realize that no number of concessions will be sufficient. True to its name, Islam seeks total submission. We have a caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Bill Colley on KLIX.
Yeah, you had talked about states turning from red to blue just a second ago, and, there has been I can't remember the term that's used, but they successfully did this to Colorado, switched it from red to blue, and it's happening to Georgia, and they're having some success. I don't know how much in Texas, but you see when we start swapping these states over and they're forever changed to blue, this presidential election changes in such a way that, potentially Republicans would never win again. And so this kind of thing that occurs, and you say to yourself, how is it that people fall for this? And I don't know. I guess there's just no end to the foolishness of humans.
Well, it comes back to this too. You think about it. It's that note that the minority, because it's vocal. Colorado, Denver's likely become a very Democrat city, but Boulder is what drove this. Which is not the biggest city in the state, and in Georgia, it's not necessarily even Atlanta. It's some of the Macon and some of the smaller cities that have been driving it. And in Texas, when you eliminate the border, you're going to change the color of Texas.
Well, see, these things are things that are occurring that scare the you-know-what out of me, because if they get their way, then we will be forever screwed, and you just wonder how long we will survive with these liberals running these insane, illogical programs that, I don't know.
40%. 40% of Idaho's population now lives in just 2 counties, and those counties are becoming bluer and bluer. And when they reach that 50% mark, and then they throw in Blaine County as well as county number 3, they'll control government in this state.
Exactly, just like in Washington and Oregon, the West Coast dictate the rest of it, like Vegas dictates Nevada. And, it's happening in Ada and Canyon, and then, of course, Blaine County. Hey, last night I happened to have I don't know who it was, whoever it was, and that chameleon witch Slicer, Elizabeth Warren, she tore into Donald Trump as if she had the higher moral ground. You say to yourself, who in the hell believes these people? But, you see, it's easy to fool the fools, and God help us, but they're killing us all and sucking us towards the you know what. And I don't know. I just hope there's enough of us left to save it.
Thank you much for the call. Increasingly, I think that we're dying out. And as I say, if they can't wait for us to die out, like the one newspaper editor in Detroit, they would just as soon throw us into a sack, as he put it, with rabid animals and into a river and drown us. Because they need to speed up their timetable, apparently. Elizabeth Warren, we should note, Pocahontas, as Donald Trump calls her, because she has, 138th ancestry for Cherokee. She got her job at Harvard University, and yet Lefty thinks that's okay. Lefty thinks it's okay to lie about your background in order to get what you want. Again, we're dealing with people. The ends justify the means, no matter how, sordid they happen to be. 8:53, we have another caller with us. You're up next. You're on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. A few minutes ago, you were talking about the guy that said that the people don't understand about this culture war. I think the biggest part about the culture war is the people don't understand the main gun that these people are using to fight their culture war against this nation. If you look at what Chelsea Clinton said, she said with the elimination of Judge Scalia, now they have the ability to get rid of guns. You look at what the Ninth Circuit did recently.
Yeah.
You look at the lawyer the judge that is going after Trump because the one worlders hate Trump because he's uncontrollable. So he's a lawyer for LaRaza. And then you got what George Norrie said about the head of the Al Qaeda, the lawyer for Mohammedanism or whatever it was. Everything they're doing, they're using law to do it. When you deny God and His law, then this is what you got to deal with. We have to get back into this and understand that we got to start living by law.
Well, and thank you for the call. And what's going on right now in Dresden with the Bilderbergers? I was reading the other day that Trump is front and center on their topical list. How do we deal with Donald Trump? And this includes, wealthy Muslims and wealthy Europeans and Peggy Noonan from the Wall Street Journal and Vernon Jordan, the old civil rights lawyer, and Clintonista. All of these people are involved. They're all at this meeting, and then there's a couple of hundred more that they recruited from around the world. They are in sheer panic at this point. Pat Buchanan says they should be. But, they hold a lot of cards, and they are very powerful people. 8:55. Speaking of Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, how many people really know who she is? We mentioned Gordie Howe dying at the top of the show. Gordie Howe was playing hockey back in the day when it wasn't a very popular sport. Still really isn't in the United States. From Saskatoon. Probably more Americans don't know who he is than who Pocahontas is. This is Elizabeth Warren speaking out against Trump, but media today is just gushing as if somehow, she opened her mouth. Now Donald Trump is toast.
Donald Trump says.
Wait a minute. Can we hear that again?
Donald Trump says.
Boy, there's a chalk or fingernails on blackboards.
Donald Trump says. They ought to look into Judge Curiel because what Judge Curiel is doing is a total disgrace.
It is.
No, Donald, what you are doing is a total disgrace.
Ooh.
Race baiting a judge who spent years defending America from the terror of murderers and drug traffickers simply because long ago his family came to America from somewhere else.
Yeah, but illegally. And they're already, the lefties are screaming about the latest nominee to the Supreme Court being white.
Donald Trump is a loud, nasty, thin-skinned fraud who has never risked anything for anyone. And
hold on a minute. He's a fraud, and she claimed that she was an Aboriginal American so she could get her job at Harvard? How does that work, folks? Don't you think that might be... How come the mainstream media isn't calling her out on that? Well, she's a fellow traveler, and that wouldn't be nice. And she's a woman, too. Well, she may not look like one, but she is. Yeah. You're next. You're on the air on News Radio 1310, KLIX.
Okay. Yes. One of the things that gets me is with all this stuff with the Christians and everything is it doesn't matter. This is all prophesied. Jesus will be here at any moment. We don't actually have to do anything. Just wait. I just wanted to say that because we don't have to do anything. And the Bible makes it clear that you have to obey government no matter what.
Well, yeah, authority is according to, thank you for the call. For instance, in the Catechism of the Roman Church, It says you were supposed to respect authority. Of course, they don't. They text all of the illegals in town over in Jerome and tell them whenever ICE is in the neighborhood. So apparently it only matters for you to follow it, not for the people who are in charge. But I read yesterday at Christian Post, which of course is from the Southern Baptist Convention, some speculation that the end is very near. And it says, take a look at what's going on in Syria and then start broadening that out and asking some questions about it. However, I've been hearing this, as I pointed out, for the last 45 years in my life or more. And I just, it goes back to that thief in the night. You don't know. You don't know. So you got to do something about it now. And you got to get off your dead bottoms and try to do it right, because it may be tomorrow, but if it isn't, it goes back to that fellow Miller who convinced all those people to go sit on the hillside and sell all of their possessions. And then when the rapture didn't happen, he said, well, I miscalculated, but stay with me. I'll come up with a new calculation. So they went back out on the hill and they sat down again and nothing happened. And then all of a sudden he found his pews empty. So, got to be careful. 8:58. It's funny that he does not tell us exactly the date and time. 8:58. Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. It's 70 right now. By the way, this is not a theological show, and there are Christian radio programs you can call and badger if you like, but I'm doing a political show. Just in case you didn't know, we've got more coming up following the newscast at 9 o'clock from Fox. Bill Colley with you on Top Story. More of your telephone calls as well. Oh, and those gender bender guys. One of them writing today saying having the gender bender surgery is a really big mistake. We'll share that.